Guys, I got bad news. I gotta go deal with a case in Houston again tomorrow.
Oh.
These shrimp fishermen are suing an oil company, and I'm like, what are you gonna cook your shrimp in?
Is that your opening argument?
Basically.
Fishermen are such dicks.
Well, now take down your fishing pole and meet me at the fishing hole. I can't think of a better way to pass the time of day.
RodMob, your Northern California fishing podcast.
Hey everybody, thanks for tuning in. I'm Scott.
And I'm Sarah.
And we're coming at you from our podcasting paradises. Here I'm in the Hayward Hills.
And I'm in the Santa Cruz Mountains.
And currently the Saints are up 28-10 on the Cowboys. It's Sunday, November 10th, 2013, and you're tuned into the RodMob. This is episode 68 of your weekly Northern California fishing podcast. Ocean salmon sport fishing wrapped up this week, and the Dungeness season is off with a bang, and with some spots producing tons of big meaty crabs.
The Delta and San Pablo Bay are the place to be for stripers, and sturgeon are starting to show up.
There's some great trout fishing to be had on the NorCal rivers right now, and if you're in the Bay Area, a few reservoirs are really hopping.
Stay tuned for all the details on these and the rest of this week's best bites when we run through your latest reports.
But first, let's start off with the news. Sarah, what do you got?
Here's Sarah with the latest headlines.
Well, in the news this week, the California Department of Fish and Wildlife released their fall midwater trawl survey, and the report shows a decline in the abundance of fish in the San Joaquin-Sacramento Delta. The survey has sampled annually since it was first created in 1967, and although the purpose of it is to determine the relative abundance of striped bass, the data has also been used for other species such as smelt, splittail, and threadfin shad. The survey takes place each month from September to December, and samples are taken from 122 stations from San Pablo Bay upstream to Stockton on the San Joaquin River, Hood on the Sacramento River, and the Sacramento Deepwater Shipping Channel. They take the samples by towing a midwater troll through the water for 12 minutes and then identify and enumerate all fish, shrimp, and jellyfish that are collected. The September and October samples showed that Delta stripers, smelt, and shad are at a fraction of what their populations were historically. 14 age 0 striped bass were collected in September, and 5 were collected in October. The 2013 September-October index is the second lowest in the survey's history. The index for threadfin shad was the third lowest in the survey's history, and for American shad, it was the second lowest on record. A former UC Davis researcher who has studied striped bass told the East Bay Express that the decline is directly related to flipping on the state and federal water pumps, as about half to two-thirds of California's striper eggs are spawned in the Sacramento River and the remainder in the Delta, and young fish can easily be sucked into the pumps. The California Sport Fishing Alliance released a statement Wednesday saying the decline in Delta fisheries is due to state and federal water export projects not following regulatory requirements. Some scientists believe there are other factors, like pollutants such as DDT and pesticides lowering fertility rates. Last week, we reported that environmental groups such as Oceana have been calling for a shutdown of California and Washington's sardine fishery. At a meeting of the Pacific Fishery Management Council over the weekend in Costa Mesa, regulators tightened fishing restrictions. Regulators wanted to reduce limits by more than half, but a motion from a representative of the California Department of Fish and Wildlife to reduce it even more, less than a third of what it was in 2013, was sustained. For 2013, the sardine catch limit for the West Coast was 66,495 tons. In California, the allocation for the season was 23,000 tons, but fishermen were only able to haul in about 4,400 tons in the first 6 months of the year. The limit for the first 6 months of 2014 is now set at 6,946 tons, and the issue will be revisited in the middle of 2014. CNN reported on a study released Monday which says that levels of radioactivity found in Pacific bluefin tuna that spawned off Japan around the time of the Fukushima nuclear accident are far below anything that would pose a health risk and have dropped in fish caught the following year. U.S. researchers did a follow-up to a 2012 study that had found radioactive cesium in tuna caught off California in the months after the Fukushima meltdown. The latest study took an even closer look at the data. CNN reports they found that anyone who eats the bluefin, highly prized for sushi and sashimi, would get about 5% of the radiation they'd get from eating one typical banana, a fruit high in naturally radioactive potassium. Scientists point out other reasons to avoid eating Pacific bluefin, like overfishing and mercury contamination. The researchers of this study found that anyone who eats a large quantity of bluefin over a long period would be more likely to see ill effects from mercury, which can damage the brain and nervous systems of young or unborn children before facing the threat of cancer from radioactive cesium.
Boom, 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 boom. I love to see you strut up and down the floor.
And in RodMob news, Scott, you've attended a couple of great events the past week or so. Why don't you give us an update on what you've been up to?
Well, yeah, last Saturday night was the 22nd annual California Inland Fishery Foundation dinner that was in Folsom. And CIFI is a great organization composed of a bunch of passionate folks that are dedicated to enhancing fishery in Northern California, and they focus a lot on kokanee salmon. I've been to many events like this over the years, and I gotta say this is one that was run very smoothly and for sure one of the best I've been to. The host food activities are all top-notch. Sepp Hendrickson from the award-winning California Sports and Radio Show was the MC, and he was busy for a good 5 hours keeping the night flowing. And they had great volunteers from the Boy Scouts and a bunch of other cool volunteers. And the attendance was really great. I'm horrible at counting how many people were there, but it was a big room, and I'd say there was well over 200 people there. They had a great night of great food. The appetizer was an entire pig that you could come up and just grab tongs and grab any part of the roast pig. So you can imagine what kind of the food. The food was awesome.
That was just the appetizer?
Yeah, the appetizer
gosh.
was a pig, and in a vegetable platter too for the pigless. You know, these fundraisers are kind of centered around a lot of raffles and auctions and stuff. So they had like this really good auctioneer guy that was great. And they raffled off stuff from Glock handguns, fishing trips with all like the best berry guides, custom rods, wine, tons of fishing gear, and you know, your always fun raffle little tchotchkes. And everyone seemed to be walking out the door with their hands full of goodies, and it was awesome. I highly recommend you guys go out to this event. One, I mean, just to support CIFI and how they're keeping the fisheries going, and it's just a really great event. So,
and you had a surprise. You were honored with an award for the kokanee egg harvest video.
Yeah, so they were showing the video that I made of one of their egg harvests that they did at Taylor Creek at South Lake Tahoe this year. And I was there taking pictures, and all of a sudden, Gary Irk, the president of the CIFI, hands me this cool little plaque award. It was I was very humbled and surprised. And,
awesome. And we've got pictures that you took from the event, and a picture of you receiving your award up on our blog at rodmob.com.
Yeah, and then this weekend I was up at Fort Bragg at the 3rd Annual Salmon Film Festival, where they're showing that video, and I had a chance to talk about it a little bit, and got to see a lot of films that highlighted how much our fisheries are in trouble from dams and climate change, fish farms, you know, trash, logging, poachers, you name it. It was really enlightening and kind of depressing in a lot of ways too. That there's, you know, for example, like there's 140 species of animals that are just dependent on salmon alone, like bears, eagles, and fish. And it's a huge domino effect on what happens to all the species up and down of the salmon in the food chain that are compromised. And the salmon return numbers have dropped from the millions into the thousands and the thousands to the hundreds. And there's a lot of great people dedicated to, and they're doing their best to restore the waters. But big business and fish farming, the big business of water and fish farming, there's a lot of money behind them, and it's tough for the people doing the right thing to win. So as anglers, we need to be positive and active and stand up against the man and set good examples for the next generation and make sure that Northern California remains a strong and thriving fishery. There's definitely a lot of information out there, guys, like wildsalmon.org, salmonrestoration.com, stopthetunnels.com, savewildsalmon.org, savemyoceans.com, Save Bristol Bay. That Bristol Bay thing's a big mess too. So anyway, guys, let's do our best to keep fishing going in Northern California and actually throughout the United States. All right.
Sounds like a good festival, and
yeah,
you got
it is.
inspired.
It is, and they're starting some really great grassroots efforts, and I look forward to seeing that thing grow and supporting them next year. All right, I'm off my soapbox.
All the latest in Northern California fishing. This is the RodMob.
Well, that's it for the headlines. Now for some tight lines. Here are the latest reports on the best Northern California fishing.
Starting with saltwater, on the North Coast, Kenny Priest reports some mixed results for the crab opener. Folks out fishing for the first week of the season found crabs to be meaty, but not everywhere. Humboldt Bay was producing lots of undersized crab this week, but those who ventured farther out found limits of big crab after soaking pots overnight. Get the full scoop in this week's Fishing the North Coast at times-standard.com/fishing the North Coast.
In contrast to the hit and miss reports up north, it's been a crab bonanza for boats out of Sausalito, Emeryville, Berkeley, Bodega Bay, Half Moon Bay, and even Monterey. Plenty of limits of big, meaty crab and rockfish for those running combo trips with some nice-sized lings to boot. RodMobber Art Demand Restoro took his cousin and two friends crabbing and rockfishing out of Half Moon Bay this week and brought in limits as well.
Some nice salmon catches finished off the ocean salmon fishing season yesterday. The outer limits out of Sausalito had 5 salmon at 20 pounds, and the Wacky Jacky out of San Francisco had 2 salmon at 20 pounds.
While the best scores of rockfish are coming from up the coast, Bayside Marine in Santa Cruz reports a good inshore bite there too. Some big lings and rockfish have been on the bite, particularly near the lighthouse, the mile buoy, and out in front of the harbor, which has been loaded up with anchovies. Crab fishing is decent too, up the coast and down near Pajaro. And Chris's Fishing and Whale Watching out of Monterey has been running crab and rockfish combo trips this week with limits or near limits of rock cod and Dungees daily. Yesterday, they had 3/4 limits of rock cod, 8 lings, and limits of crab for 20 anglers on the Checkmate, limits of rock cod and 25 lings on the Star of Monterey, and limits of rock cod and 8 lings on the Caroline.
You know, we were talking about last week, I just made me think of this when I was up at Fort Bragg, but we were talking about that guy got all his gear stolen out of his car.
Yeah.
And then I was, when I was up at Fort Bragg at the counter at Denny's getting some breakfast, sitting next to these couple fishermen and was listening to their conversation. This guy, he had just come there and set up all his pots down there at the parking lot, and someone stole all his gear.
Oh, no.
Horrible way to like start off the season. And, you know, this guy's going out fishing for a living. And
it's his livelihood. Yeah. Oh, my gosh. That's horrible.
Yeah. Hopefully he'll catch enough crab this season to cover that. Sucks.
Yeah, man.
Moving on.
The striper bite in the North San Francisco Bay is getting good. Lots of great reports are coming in from throughout San Pablo Bay and the Napa River. Larger fish have been taking live bullheads or mudsuckers, and NorCal Fishing News reports the Sisters to the Pump House, Brothers, and Red Rock have been good spots. And earlier this week, Craig Hansen on the Argo reported they ran a trip drifting live shiners near Buoy 5 and scored bass to 12 pounds near the top of the tide.
Craig also reports that their half-day shark trips continue to be a great success in the South Bay. With smaller morning tides, there was a slower sturgeon fishing this week, but everyone's expecting the sturgeon to arrive next week.
On the Delta, the West Delta bite is heating up with dinos and line sides. Row and the deep sections are producing keeper sturgeon. Some reports of huge stripers this week being landed near Benicia on split tail or large bullheads, and shore anglers are having luck with bullheads or bloodworms. NorCal Fishing News reports some hot spots have been State Park and 14th Street, as well as under the Benicia Bridge. Good striper reports have also been coming out of Rio Vista, where mudsuckers are getting it done from Rio Vista Bridge to the ferry, and Broad Slough and Sherman Lake are producing around Antioch. Sturgeon reports are coming in from near the power lines in Rio Vista and in Collinsville. And RodMobber Anthony Bridges caught a nice 59-inch dino in Pittsburgh this week. We also got a report from Richard Smith, who went sturgeon fishing with fellow RodMobbers John and Jonathan Politis. Richard says John and John were incredible hosts, and they hooked 4 fish by noon. The first was oversized and spit the hook, but Richard took a 52-incher, his first sturgeon, home for dinner. The Politises also took Alejandro Contreras on a dino hunt this week, and he landed a 47.5-inch fish, which turned out to be an awesome birthday present. Here's some hotline reports we received this week from Clyde Wands and Scott Vaughn.
This is Clyde. Around Decker today, shallow trolling, it was pretty good. I got 5 there up to 16 pounds, got a 16 and a 10. Of course, turned the big one loose. Then from there, I went to Broad Slough for just 1 fish, and then back up to Decker, behind Decker, picked up 2 more, about 5 pounds on the highway side, trolling deep.
Scott Vaughn calling from El Dorado Hills. Got a fly fishing report for you for the Delta. Went out last Saturday, pretty good. Launched out a Holland track in my kayak, paddled around with a buddy of mine, and wound up sticking over a dozen fish each for the day. Largest one was only in the 22-inch range. Lots of small stripers, so that's a good sign for the future. Seeing plenty of bait, saw lots of birds working, dive in the water. Saw lots of bluegill, which is a rarity for us. We haven't seen a lot of bluegill in a long time. Mostly throwing T14 lines and clousers to get down deep to the fish.
Leave your fishing report on the RodMob hotline. 855-RodMob1.
Now let's look at the lakes. Lewiston Lake is still looking good for bows.
At Lake Shasta, anglers are finding good trout action around the O'Brien Inlet, Waters Gulch, and in the main body of the lake. We're hearing shad imitations are working well.
Fishing pressure is light at Clear Lake, but Clear Lake Outdoors reports those who are fishing are finding school bass shallowed in the north end. In the south end of the lake, the bass start early and move out to 20 feet of water.
Lake Berryessa is producing trout in Skiers Cove and the Narrows, with some good bass action in the Narrows as well.
In the Motherlode area, Lake Amador is still getting daily trout plants during the week, and on Friday they stocked 112 fish with a total weight of 1,750 pounds, a 15.6 pound average. Limits are being taken on power bait and mice tails.
Lake Comanche got its first plant last week, 3,000 pounds of rainbow trout from Mount Lassen Trout Farm. And they stocked another 3,000 pounds this week, with fish going in at South Shore, North Shore, and the Trout Pond. There will be a weekly plant from now until May.
The action has been picking up at Collins Lake, with more reports of limits of trout coming in on power bait and worms, and some nice-sized fish at that. Collins has gotten 7,000 pounds in the past few weeks, and they're expecting another double trophied plant next week.
And at New Melones, the trout bite has been getting better as water temps continue to drop. Glory Hole Sports reports there are more fish showing up near the surface, making them easier to catch for both trolling anglers and bank anglers. The trout are targeting balls of very small shad and will push the bait from deep to shallow water. Try finding shallow water areas with deep water access. Trolling anglers should try top-lining small plug-style baits. Rapalas, speed traps, and lucky craft baits will do the trick. Be sure to let plenty of line out to where your lure is clear of your boat wake. Try shad patterned colors on clear days and fire tiger or rainbow trout colors on cloudy days. And be sure to add scent to entice a few more strikes. Bass are also targeting shad and feeding on crawdads, and catfish are biting on night crawlers, liver, shad, and anchovies.
In the East Bay, cooler temps and trout plants at Lake Chabot, Contra Loma, Shadow Cliffs, and the Lafayette Reservoir have kicked up the trout bite. At Chabot, trout are biting on power bait around the first dock and hitting on rapalas and castmasters off of Bass Cove and out at the dam. Los Vaqueros continues to be a good spot for stripers and trout, and Shadow Cliffs is producing a decent trout bite from the shore. Couple recent highlights: Colin Morgul of Oakley caught a 20-pound striper at Contra Loma, the largest striper caught there this year. He was targeting trout using garlic-scented gulp, and a 21-pound catfish came out of Los Vaqueros last week.
In the Sierras, some big trout are being caught at Lake Tahoe. Mike Nielsen of Tahoe Topliners reports the shallow bite is on, and they're catching browns and bows from 2 to 7 pounds. Some big macs are also being caught trolling minnow-dodger combos.
We've been hearing a lot more from Pyramid Lake this week. The shore fishing is picking up, and big fish, 20-plus pounders, are being caught at the south end of the lake.
And fishing has been spectacular at June Lake. There are just a few days left of the season, and anglers are making the most of it, trolling for limits of trout. The season ends November 15th.
I got no reason to play the Mr. Crowley soundbite this week.
Sorry, I hunted, but it was like Crowley, nothing sucked.
They were saying it was kind of sucky this week.
Yeah. So we like to include our sound effect when we can.
Hey, Rod Mobbers, help support the show. Subscribe to the podcast on iTunes and leave a review.
Checking in on the rivers, the McCloud and the Pit are both fishing great right now, and Hat Creek has no crowds and an active trout bite in the mornings and late evenings. These waters all close November 15th, so get out there while you still can.
The Trinity has been good for steelhead over the past few days. Mike Bogue's Guide Service has been posting some great catches on their Facebook page. And guide Chris Parsons says water conditions are low and clear, exactly what November is known for. Fishing has been consistent. What I mean is you'll have a chance or two at a Trinity fish. And if you run into a pod of fish moving up, holding in some glide between Lewiston and Pigeon Point or points below, you could find enough fish where the numbers add up. Epic days are happening, but those reports are not everyday occurrences. Typically, as long as the Trinity has king salmon moving through, the steelhead seem to move with them. Expect better reports as the salmon run tapers and we get some rain. Good stuff is in store.
The upper Sac is fishing well during the day when things warm up, and trout from 15 to 20 inches are being caught on the lower Sac from the Redding area to Red Bluff. As Chris Parsons says, the lower Sac continues to produce big smiles and bent rods. AC Fly Fishing out of Redding has been putting his clients on some beautiful steelhead this week. NorCal Fishing News reports that there are steelies below the Coleman hatchery.
In the Sierras, Matt Heron Fly Fishing reports dry fly fishing has continued to produce quality rainbows on the Truckee this week. We've heard Glenshire and Herschdale have been good spots lately. Matt still has a few openings in November, so check out mattheronflyfishing.com and give Matt a call if you want to get out on the water. And reporting in from the eastern Sierras, Sierra Drifters continues to find big, beautiful fish in the deeper pools of the upper and middle Owens. Seriously, you've got to check out these pictures Tom is posting on the Sierra Drifters Guide Service Facebook page. Yesterday, Tom reported streamers and small mayflies are getting them on the middle Owens. Caddis adults and a variety of nymphs and streamers are getting grabs on the upper Owens. The key is position in both locations due to low flows. If you're struggling, pack up and move locations. Fish are holding in deeper water. Well, we like to throw in an interesting fishing fact each week, and here's one I came across on Outdoor Life about fish bladders. You might have noticed that some fish pulled from deep water can be released and will swim right back down, but others have trouble descending. That's because some fish, Physostomus species like trout, can burp air as they're being pulled up, relieving the gas buildup in their swim bladders. Others, Physoclistus species like largemouth bass, do not have a connection between the swim bladder and the gut, so their swim bladders expand, greatly increasing their buoyancy. So, there you go.
Follow us on Twitter, twitter.com/therodmob.
All right, we got a book with a hook.
Yeah, I got a book recommendation for you guys this week. It's a quick read. I bought the audio version on Amazon. It was only $3.95. The book is called Beyond Catch and Release, Exploring the Future of Fly Fishing, and it's by Paul Guernsey. And I found the book very interesting and thought-provoking. It covers some history about fly fishing, but it was the sections that talk about etiquette, morality, and the future of catch and release fly fishing that really got me thinking, and you guys should check it out. Once again, it's called Beyond Catch and Release, Exploring the Future of Fly Fishing.
Okay, let's give away some cool stuff.
Here we go.
Our giveaway this month is a great one, 6 handmade wooden plugs made by Lyman Lures. And if you caught our interview last week with Colin from Lyman, you know these are great handmade wooden plugs. Last week's winner is Stan out of Carson City. Congratulations, Stan. We'll get your new Lyman plug out to you this week. The giveaway continues this week, so shoot us an email at fishon@rodmob.com to enter to win your very own handmade plug from Lyman Lures. And to find out more about these awesome plugs, check out lymanlures.com. That's LYMAN lures.com.
Woo! Fish! Woo! All right!
Catch of the week.
This week, our podcast artwork comes courtesy of Anthony Bridges, who posted a picture on our Facebook page of a 59-inch sturgeon he caught this week in Pittsburgh. Thanks for posting, Anthony, and congratulations on having this week's Catch of the Week.
All right, poll question time. Well, we all know fishing gear can be quite an investment. So last week we asked, have you ever lied to your significant other about how much you've spent on fishing gear? 40% of you said yes, you have. And 60% of you said no, you haven't lied about it. Well, it was an anonymous poll, so I suppose nobody would be lying in the pole.
Not unless
So-
your significant other is a hacker and you're worried about that.
Or standing over your shoulder while you're taking the pole.
An NSA employee.
Right. Yes.
The RodMob records have been hacked by NSA security. We know that you lied about that sage rod you bought.
Significant others everywhere are checking your receipts.
Those Usuri lures cost $20, not $10.
Busted. Well, this week we're wondering how many more times you're planning to get out on the water this year. It's November. Are you winding down your fishing activities with the holidays approaching and the weather getting colder? Or are you just getting started with all this fall fishing action? Head on over to rodmob.com and cast your vote.
Upcoming events you won't want to miss. Here's the RodMob calendar.
Convict Lake's Fall Fishing Derby, Ambush at the Lake, continues through November 15th. The fishing's been great with lots of 2+ pounders coming into the Convict Lake Resort this week. Check out convictlake.com while there's still time to participate.
Commercial crab season south of Mendocino County starts November 15th.
Saturday, November 16th is the Trout Bout at Oak Grove Regional Park in Stockton. There will be 2,700 pounds of trout on hand to catch, with prizes for kids and adults. Gates open at 6:15 a.m.
November 23rd, fishing expert Steve Carson talks long-range fishing trips at the Bass Pro Shops in Manteca. Call 209-825-8400 for more info.
On November 30th, Fishing in the City has an SF Bay Area Pier Fishing Day from 8 a.m. to 10:30 a.m. at McNears Beach in San Rafael. For more info, call 415-446-4424.
And looking ahead to January, it's time for the International Sportsman's Expo at Cal Expo, and that's coming up January 9th through the 12th. You can go to sportsexpos.com for more info.
For details on these and other upcoming events, check out our events page at rodmob.com. And if you have an event you'd like us to mention, just drop us a line at fishon@rodmob.com.
Well, thanks again for listening, guys, to another episode of the RodMob Northern California Fishing Podcast. We'd love to know what you guys think about the show, and if there are areas we're not covering, we'd like to hear about that too, so let us know.
And if you've been out fishing and have a report to share, we want to mention it here. After all, the RodMob is all about anglers helping other anglers. So shoot us an email at fishon@rodmob.com, post to our Facebook page, or call and leave a message on the RodMob hotline at 855-RodMob1 and give us the scoop on where you were and what the fishing was like.
And remember, even if you get skunked, that's valuable information for the rest of us. If you do share a report, we'll send you a free weather-resistant RodMob decal, which we guarantee will look awesome on your car, truck, or boat, and as I like to say, your trapper keeper. And some say it brings good fishing luck too.
And if you're listening to us on your iPhone or iPod, please be sure to subscribe to the podcast. You can do that right from iTunes for free. And if you like what you're hearing, please take a moment to give us 4 stars in the iTunes store and leave a good review. If you've got suggestions for us, just shoot an email to fishon@rodmob.com.
Thanks again for listening and contributing. And until next time, keep us posted.
RodMob.
I hosed off my boat today. I want to get that sucker in the Delta ASAP.
Now's the time.
Yeah, man.
Get some stripers. And you still have to catch your first sturgeon.
Yep. Working on it.